Hey guys, how we doing? So we're back on another video from Mother's Basement. Does anime need good animation? Brackets One Punch Man Season 2. Now, I have no problem with the animation in One Punch Man Season 2. I think it's actually pretty good. The trailer was a bit off before the series started, but other than that, I think it's been quite decent. I got no complaints at all. My girlfriend thinks it was good. And as soon as I mentioned that Mother's Basement done a whole video specifically talking about One Punch Man Season 2, kind of like, I don't get why it's necessary. I can understand before the show started when the trailer was looking the way it did, but the series, I don't think it needs a whole video going over the animation, but let's see what Mother's Basement has to say anyway.
Anime is what we call a loan word. In the same way that we borrow the Japanese words for sushi and futon instead of coming up with our own, Japan has
took
borrowed
animation,
and shortened the English animation. We then borrowed that word back in order to classify animated works made with Japanese techniques and principles, and now, while there's some discrepancy in where we draw the line on what it describes, when I say the word anime, you generally know what I mean. You also probably know most of the word's etymology, since everything I just described is recent history, but I wanted to make sure everyone watching is on the same page before I deliver this video's thesis.
Okay.
Given that animation is literally right there in the name, you would think that animation quality would be a primary factor in deciding how much anime fans enjoy the anime they watch. But when you look at what's actually successful in the anime market, it quickly becomes clear that that's not always the case.
Yeah.
As you can probably guess, if you even have to, since Future Me probably plastered it all over the thumbnail and title of this video, what got me thinking about this is the new season of One Punch Man, which, as many of us predicted when the last trailer dropped, isn't great. I've already made a video talking about the behind-the-scenes issues plaguing this new season, so you can watch that if you want the full story, but the drop in quality resulting from those changes has been precipitous. Most of the character animation is either overly stiff or unnaturally slippery, as though the animations with higher frame counts weren't timed correctly. A lot of keyframes and even still images of characters are noticeably off-model more than half the time. Crowd scenes are filled with stock CGI characters that don't even remotely match the style of the show, and every directing choice seems to have been made with the intent to minimize the impact of these problems rather than to visually tell a story. Those directing shortcuts are sadly felt the hardest in the choppy, incoherent action scenes, which rely way too heavily on fast cuts and close-ups over actually good animation. One Punch Man was once the standard bearer for great fight Sakuga in anime, but at its best, this second season barely even qualifies as Sakuga. There are only 8 shots from the 4 episodes that have aired so far on Sakuga Boru compared to the 140-something from the first season, and almost all of them were animated by the same guy. It's not all bad. Whatever outsourcing studio handled the CGI centipedes in episode 4 did a bang-up job of it. The lighting effects and compositing are pretty impressive at times, and I'm sure a future episode will give me a third thing, but most of it is bad. And, as I anticipated in my video about the trailer, most people watching it don't seem to care. One Punch Man Season 2 is currently sitting at an average rating of 8.8.
I think it's because it's not that bad.
400,000 people who say that they're watching it on MAL.
For me, it does kind of matter. If I think something's that bad that I can't watch it, I'm not going to.
New episodes are routinely among the top voted threads each week on our anime, and I'm really failing at the
There is also that there's not really much to watch at the moment.
I think you get the idea. It seems
One Punch Man and
like
Attack on Titan.
gamble in switching studios and directors has paid off. The general public is happy to have more One Punch Man now as opposed to better One Punch Man later, and to be clear, in spite of my many criticisms of this season and the business decisions behind it, I'm happy that people are happy with it. The point of this video is not to grumpily say, hey you normies, stop ruining art by liking things that aren't up to my arbitrary standards. Plenty of other YouTubers have that angle.
Okay.
And besides that, if I'm being perfectly honest, I kinda like One Punch Man Season 2. I don't love it, and I wouldn't recommend it over any of the shows
Garo's amazing.
on my team list or over reading the manga, and I'm still very disappointed with it, but I still had a decent 6 out of 10 time watching it, and that time went by pretty quickly and easily. And that is the point of this video. I want to isolate the aspects of One Punch Man 2 that do work, and more broadly, to figure out what factors are important in determining an anime's success, if animation isn't one of them. To answer that second query, I think it makes sense to look at the One Punch Man production committee's rationale in choosing to trade out Shingo Natsume and Madhouse for Chikara Sakurai and JC staff. To make a long story that I've already covered short,
Madhouse always do
Natsume
really good
was
animation,
too
though,
busy
don't
with other projects to work on the show for 2019, and rather than wait another year for a follow-up, which would have put the show in Attack on Titan Season 2 territory,
God,
the
which is a long
producers
time.
decided to hire someone else. The fear with waiting too long to follow up a popular
People
show
fall
is
off.
that the fans might lose interest.
Yeah.
And while you might say, I love One Punch Man, I'd watch a new season no matter when it drops as long as it's good,
It's not
that's
necessarily
not
the
true for
case.
everyone, and the show
No, for
doesn't
everyone, no.
exist in a vacuum. The other big superhero anime, My Hero Academia, has been gaining ground on One Punch Man with each successive season, and a new one is due out this year. On top of that, Mob Psycho
Can't
100,
wait.
which is owned by a competing publisher, had its second season slated for 2019, and while it didn't steal One Punch Man's thunder, it could have. I'd argue it deserves to. I can see the logic behind the decision to rush a new season out to meet those competitors, even if I don't agree with it. There's certainly a lot of precedent behind it. It's not exactly unheard of in the anime industry to sacrifice production values for timeliness. And generally speaking, it's a pretty successful strategy. Studios Pierrot, Toei, and
Pierrot.
OLM have built their entire business models around creating long-running series based on existing high-profile intellectual properties. By necessity, the animation in those shows, produced on tight deadlines, sometimes just weeks behind the material they're adapting, is rarely great, sometimes awful, and mostly just passable. But it's delivered weekly with almost no breaks in the ongoing story, even if they run out of ongoing story to adapt, which means that fans almost always have
Something
new
to watch.
content to
Yeah.
enjoy,
Yeah.
and new reminders to buy shit. Many of the anime produced using this model,
Side steps.
Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Yokai Watch, Beyblade, Sailor Moon, One Piece, Detective Conan, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, Boruto, Boruto's Dad Shippuden, Bleach, Fairy Tail, Black Clover, Gintama, Pretty Cure, the last two seasons of JoJo are so ubiquitous in the conversation around anime that I'm willing to bet you recognize every single franchise on that list instantaneously,
Yeah.
even if you haven't seen it. And if you didn't, that might be because you know Pretty Cure as Glitter Force. Thanks, Netflix. That widespread brand recognition goes hand in hand with absurd merchandise and home media profits, which are kinda sorta the only metrics of your enjoyment that the companies making these things actually give a crap about. Almost all of those properties rank among the most profitable media franchises in existence, according to Wikipedia. There is only one relatively high-quality single-season anime on that list, Neon Genesis Evangelion, and if not for pachinko licensing, it would barely make the $4 billion cut. It's clear that ongoing series, especially as part of a broader marketing push, have a major financial edge over seasonal fare. The secret to these shows' success, I believe, lies in their consistency. For the most part, these shows are consistently just okay, but they are consistent, and that, I believe, is the secret to their success. You can reliably anticipate a new episode of One Piece or Boruto or Black Clover every week. And that matters a lot to people in general, and to you, even if you think it doesn't. Human beings are creatures of habit.
Oh, that's true.
To have routines, and watching a new episode of our favorite shows every week is an easy and satisfying one to fall into. It might take some doing to get into, say, One Piece or JoJo, but once you're into it, you're into it. You have something to do for half an hour every week,
so good.
something to talk about with your friends and or social media circles, something to look forward to next week. You never have to wait too long to find out what will happen next, and there's zero chance that you'll forget what happened last time before you do. In some ways, once you're watching these shows, it can be easier to keep watching than it is to stop. That kind of consistency is the cornerstone of this very channel. I try to balance things out so that my videos are always at least good with some great ones mixed in, and I'll delay them if I feel they're not up to snuff, but I try to upload every Saturday. Because of that, at least some of you guys anticipate a new video when the weekend rolls around, and through both word of mouth and just reminding YouTube that I exist by watching, those of you who know a video's coming and show up in the first few hours to watch and comment help me reach other viewers. And that's worked for me pretty well. Maybe too well, since a lot of you missed the Full Metal Alchemist PSA I uploaded this Tuesday. It does have a different style of thumbnail, so I won't hold that against you, but maybe you should go watch it after this. I think it's a pretty darn good video, and a lot of folk are saying that it's one of their favorites that I've ever made. Sorry, what was I talking about?
Yeah, what were we talking about? Let's get back on
Good
track.
seasonal anime has a lot of advantages over the ongoing stuff. It's generally more impressive to look at, though there are exceptions on both sides, and the storytelling can be tighter by virtue of being planned out well in advance without need for filler. But no matter how good it is, no matter how much attention it grabs on release, seasonal anime has to keep reminding people that it exists every time a new season rolls around. Inevitably, that message will be missed by some existing viewers, and over time the show's audience is bound to dwindle. The way to mitigate that, at least in theory, is with consistency on a different scale. Regular planned seasonal releases that come close enough together for each new season to be
My Hero Academia does it.
annual routines.
It works.
Their weekly ones.
Attack on
My
Titan's
Hero
doing it now.
Academia,
There we are.
Attack on
There we
Titan,
are.
and now The Promised Neverland
Oh.
are all taking that approach. And
It's
while
best-
I don't
it's the best way to do
know
it.
what the production committee behind it is thinking, I'd wager that's what One Punch Man is moving toward as well. With one having
be cool.
started up the webcomic again after a 2-year hiatus,
Oof.
new merch in production, and
Oof.
a One Punch Man mobile game on the
Oof.
horizon, it sure seems like this new anime is part of a larger marketing plan. And while that's a pretty cynical way to look at art, especially something so well and widely loved that it would probably do just as well on a we'll release it when it's ready schedule, the reality of the world we live in is that for the people who actually get to make these decisions, reliable profit margins will almost always trump artistic ambition. Still, even the best content strategy in the world won't amount to much if the content it's based around is a steaming dog turd. One Punch Man Season 2 had to be at least good enough for general audiences, even if
It's
it couldn't
class.
be exceptional. There are two kinds of animation that you see in most TV anime. Sakuga, a word that you've heard me use quite a few times in this video, is another loan word that we use to refer to the important scenes and shots that are given the highest priority in an anime's production schedule. Animators can spend a lot of time really crafting and polishing these sequences for maximum impact, and often they'll inject their personal style and flair into them. If part of an anime really impresses you or stands out as more dynamic or exciting or stylistically striking than the rest of the show, it's probably Sakuga. The rest of the time, anime is made with limited animation. That is, animation designed to minimize the number of new drawings needed to convey motion. That means shots where only part of a character, like their mouth or arm, will actually move, and sequences with very low frame rates, typically 8 frames per second, that can suggest more complex movement without fully fleshing it out. Often, the drawings used to create these sequences are reused later on in order to save more time and money.
yeah.
One Punch Man 2 is comprised almost entirely of limited animation. But then, so are the vast majority of popular Western cartoons, like The Simpsons, Scooby-Doo, and Gravity Falls. Limited animation is what allows cartoons to exist on TV at all, since producing enough drawings to fill a 5 to 10 hour season grade animation in under a year is basically
That's hard.
impossible. And limited animation is not inherently bad animation. Isolating certain motions or dropping the frame rate at the right time can be a powerful artistic and comedic tool. But even when it's used mainly out of necessity, the results can be very entertaining. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is almost all flapping lips and static poses.
Yes,
But
it
there are
is.
Some damn good poses,
Jaja!
and it's one of my favorite shows of all time. I love me some good Sakuga, but I don't need it to enjoy anime, and I don't think most anime fans do. Limited animation, executed well, can be very enjoyable, especially when other aspects of the production make up for its shortcomings. And that's what One Punch Man 2 is shooting for. Now, Chuck Jones, one of the greatest animators to ever live, said that he thinks of shows produced in this way not as animation, but as illustrated radio. And that sounds like a mean dig from a bitter gatekeeper, but it doesn't seem like it really was. In the same interviews, Jones expressed a great deal of respect for shows made with limited animation, like Rocky and Bullwinkle and The Simpsons, and he understood that making a season of animated TV is a very different beast from making short films.
Right,
It's
yeah.
just that he also saw a great deal of difference between his work, where the visuals were the primary vehicle for storytelling and humor, and theirs, where clever dialogue and strong voice work filled that role. You can watch a Chuck Jones cartoon with the sound off and understand almost everything
What's going
that's
on,
going
yeah, 'cause it's just visual
perfectly.
cues.
The same cannot be said for The Simpsons or most Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Hence, illustrated radio. Not a
Oh, makes sense, yeah,
lesser
'cause
art
because
form,
what you're
but a
hearing,
different
yeah.
one with different requirements. scenes. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried watching it with the subs off, but most anime falls into that camp.
That's
especially
true.
outside of fight scenes, where static heads with flapping lips are the default way of presenting dialogue. Anime does straddle the line more than a lot of Western shows. The whole point of Sakuga is to inject a bit of film-quality animation spice into the inherently limited palette of televised cartoons, but shows like Space Dandy and Mob Psycho 100 that can be largely understood from visuals alone are few and far between, and even they have their share of totally static scenes. In light of that, I think the concept of illustrated radio provides a useful framework for examining and appreciating the other things that make anime work. Because when you look at it through that lens, a lot of things start to make more sense. Like the fact that dialogue is often recorded after lip flaps are animated without much care given to how they actually sync up. It's more important that the actor be able to give their best performance and the animation be done on time than it is for you to believe that the character on screen is actually talking. Seiyu arguably do the bulk of the work in bringing many anime characters to life, conveying their emotions and personality even when the animation can only suggest it. The flapping lips are really just there to aid your imagination in a lot of cases. And when you look at anime in this way, it becomes clear that just like with radio plays, a compelling soundscape can make all the difference. It certainly does with One Punch Man. The fight scenes in the new season are poorly animated, but a lot of people don't seem to mind. And
it's not poorly animated. Like that's a heavy word.
Good.
That is a heavy word.
By the standards of illustrated radio, they are at least decent. They still feel pretty satisfying and impactful to watch because they sound satisfying and impactful. Every important motion comes with a dramatic anime whoosh or or poof that sells it even when the animation falls short. Yoshikazu Iwanami, who took over from Shingo Natsume's go-to sound director Shoji Hata, is pretty good at making anime sound like anime. He's got plenty of experience from working on the likes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Fate, Planet With, Kill la Kill, Penguin Stalking, SAO, Baccano.
That's some good stuff there.
Scroll by while I talk. His style doesn't work for everything. It was a bit much for the darker, more serious setting of Berserk, for example. And it doesn't sound the best through movie theater speakers on the movies that he's worked on, but his penchant for using crunchy, bassy sound effects is a perfect fit for the purposefully over-the-top One Punch Man. And that, coupled with strong vocal performances from the returning cast, a strong script from returning writer Tomohiro Suzuki, and still great music from series composer Makoto Miyazaki, makes One Punch Man Season 2 pretty dang watchable, or should I say listenable, in spite of its shortcomings. Personally, I still prefer reading the manga, but I do think those aspects of the new season add a lot of value where the animation lacks it, and I can see why somebody would want to watch the anime instead. I touched on this when discussing Masafumi Mimo's work on Initial D, but the more I look into anime sound directing, the more I realize just how vital it is to my enjoyment of the shows I watch. Just as an example, sound director Jin Aketagawa is the lone common denominator between like half of all my favorite anime, from Anohana to ReZero, and that's not a coincidence. In spite of this video's title, none of this is to say that animation isn't a vitally important part of anime, or that it can't make the difference between an anime being great or good or bad. Just that it's only one part, and depending on the show, maybe not the most important part. If you reflect on it, I think most of you watching this can name at least one show that you love to pieces that's lacking in the animation department. And those shows probably grabbed your attention by excelling in some other area that might not be as immediately noticeable. Off the top of my head, Planet With had pretty underwhelming visuals.
Yeah, CGI was bad on that, but it was a good anime.
One of my favorite shows of last year. Also, Norio Wakamoto plays a talking dog. Why haven't you watched it yet? At the end of all this, I'd
really
like to reiterate
and
expand upon what I said at the end of What's Happening to One Punch Man. You should take time to learn about and appreciate the animators and actors who bring your favorite characters, worlds, and moments to life. But also, look beyond them. Every anime you watch, every film you see, every game you play is the result of the collective effort of many talented individuals from dozens of artistic disciplines working in concert to make a single cohesive and compelling work of art. Sound directors, character and color designers, compositors, editors, storyboard artists, production assistants, whether you notice it or not, all of them need to play their parts for the work as a whole to really resonate, or even come together at all. And if they play their parts well enough, they can pick up the slack where others don't or can't. These These artists all deserve more recognition, and I can all but guarantee that in looking into them, you will find some interesting connections between your favorite anime, and perhaps stumble onto some new favorites in your hunt. If you do decide to dive into that bit of research homework, share some of the most surprising connections you found in the comments below. And if you don't, I'd love to hear your honest thoughts about One Punch Man Season 2, whether you love it, hate it, or fall somewhere in the middle. And while you're down there, please like the video if you liked it, and hit subscribe if you want to see more. I'm Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's
basement. Okay, the video wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought the whole video was just going to be pooping all over One Punch Man, and I was just like, I'm not going to stand for it, but, some valid points made when you talk about different aspects of what makes a decent anime. I can't disagree with him on that. But yeah, I personally feel like the animation is decent on Season 2. I mean, it's not up to the same standard as Season 1, but in my head I was like, why is he going to do the effort of putting that in the title? But it's the most recent thing, I suppose, it's out, and whatever, yeah, it's fine. If it does start doing what Attack on Titan and My Hero Academia do, where it's like 13 episodes break, 13 episodes break, or 23 episodes break, however, I think that'd be really good. I think that works now. That's what, you know, because then they can spend the time on it and put it out, put a decent product out. So let's just see where that goes. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave comments down below, let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. I'll see you guys next time.